From my good friend Victor Wednesday telling me that Fred passed away while riding his bicycle last weekend, and pretty surprised. As Victor had said, he always knew that Fred was one of those guys that would outlive all of us, even though he's a good 12 years older than the both of us. We're both kind of stunned, and I'm guessing that that's probably had a similar effect on lots of people. I've thought a lot about it the last couple days, and Rennie, I sending her an email or a card or whatever just seemed to not cover it at all. Certainly I can't tell you anything about Fred that you don't already know, but I can tell you the way I feel about him. And I have thought a lot about it the last 4 or 5 days, and so I felt that this was probably the best way for me to communicate it. I met Fred in '79 when I went to work in the packaging industry in the Bay Area, and Fred was a customer of mine, became a customer of mine, but all he'd do is buy these crummy little wire buckles. He wouldn't buy our main product because he thought it was crappy quality, and I think he was probably right. 2 years later, he called me up, asked if I'd have lunch with him, and I said, yeah. And he offered me a job. And so after meeting with his partner, Dennis Simmons, went to work for the Fred Giovannini and Dennis Simmons packaging show at American Packaging up on 75th Avenue in Oakland. I remember going to work the first day and driving up, and 75th Avenue was not a nice part of town. It was about a stone's throw from the Coliseum, and drove up there, and there's Fred outside in a pair of Levi's and a khaki shirt raising the Italian flag. All the brothers walking by, not really paying attention because they were used to it. He did it all the time, and getting ready for business for the day. And above all things, Fred was Italian, and it was pretty funny. I learned a lot from Fred and Dennis. They both became mentors and friends, and Fred particularly had such a big impact on my sales career and attitude and that sort of thing, but also a big effect on my life. And I left American Packaging in September of '86, moved to Seattle. It's 25 years ago. I've seen Fred maybe 10 years ago, 12 years ago, and I can't remember where, but I introduced him to Victor Cross, and they had become really good friends. Traveling buddies had gone to Cuba at least once together, and I can't even imagine where else. I've heard all the stories, or at least some of them, and so it's through Victor that I've kept in tabs with Fred, and I think it worked both ways. One of the things I loved with Fred was whitewater rafting, and he was passionate about it. I don't think he was either really passionate about it or wouldn't even consider it, because that's just the way he rolled. And so whitewater rafting was something that I got on board with real fast, and I remember going down my first time. I had canoed somewhat as a kid in the East Coast, surfed a lot, so I was comfortable in the water. But if you see if I can align this without a camera person here, and this is the South Fork of the American River. I'm thinking it's April, May, June of '82 is what I'm guessing. And we had a couple springs there where they had tremendous runoff. I remember Fred saying that he had done this the week before, and you can see I'm right in the bow there, and Hank is in the back on the left, and Fred's in the back on the right. And there was just a ton of water that was going through there, and but within 5 minutes we had gone down a waterfall and and pretty much capsized. Didn't we? We not only capsized, we flipped. Everybody, we lost everybody. Last thing Fred yelled was, "Hang on to your damn paddles!" And I remember getting shooting down rapids and under trees and stuff, and was able to swim out and grab the raft. And somebody threw me a line and brought the raft in, and Hank came floating by about 10 minutes later, and then Fred showed up about a half hour later, came through the trees. I don't know who the fourth guy was, but I remember we did not find him till the end of the day at the end of where the takeout was. So rafting was really fun. This is the only real memorabilia that I have that's physical from Fred. Skiing was another thing that was so great. He had a great cabin and loved to ski, and Vic and I go up skiing with him all the time. It seemed like we'd jump in his red Mercedes and go on up there and hit Alpine or Squaw and Heavenly and all these great places and fabulous skiing, and spend a couple days and just laugh and tell stories and run over Vic on his new skis, and it was just fabulous. Really, really incredible. The last couple days, Fred is like he's more than the pebble that fell in a pond. He's more like a boulder. I can't even imagine where the ripples go from his life. I know only a small part of it, but just in the very small part of it that I would call packaging and sales, I've had conversations. Howard Edelman I talked to, who's at American Packaging now. I've known Howard for 15, maybe 20 years, I can't remember. Howard and I have done business in the past, and so we had a nice chat. Brian Duncan, he was our Bemis guy back 25 years ago, and he and Fred were instrumental in getting me helping me line up stuff when I moved to Seattle. I ended up going to work for Brian at the Bemis company, and he and I have been packaging buddies for a long time, and run into each other occasionally, keep in touch. One of the most enjoyable conversations, though, thanks Howard made this possible, was to track down Dennis Simmons. Dennis had moved to Goodyear, Arizona, and between he and Fred, they were just great guys to work with and a lot of fun. And so I talked to Dennis. I can't remember how long it's been, maybe 15 years. And so through Howard was able to track him down in Arizona. I had a nice conversation with him, traded a couple of emails. But Fred and Dennis were fabulous. Fred always had, they both had some pretty colorful quotes, but I know one of the very key things that Fred did for me as a person, as a salesperson, really was to tell me to be myself. Don't be stuffy, don't try to be like other people, just do what you're good at and let your personality come out and be fine. I think I've accomplished that to a fault, and so for good or for bad, I definitely have embraced that, even more so as I get older, and I really appreciate that advice. Fred would always say, I'd rather have a little bit of something, Ricky, than a whole lot of nothing. And that was a phrase you heard about echoing through the warehouse all the time. And of course, when it came to women, Fred and Dennis would be very generous with their advice and comments, and colorful comments that you're not going to hear right here, because I'll tell you one-on-one, but they have no place on here. But just great guys, and always good advice, and it's just incredible. I knew that just sending an email or card wasn't enough, so I wanted to put this out. A lot of people I probably don't know or won't ever, I don't know, who knows. But I just had to tell people how I felt about Fred. And then finally I had a couple musical friends of mine come over, and we do a little song here at the end. So it's all from the heart, and Rennie, if there's any plans for any kind of memorial or gathering, I would love to come down and be part of that. Okay, so anyways, thanks everybody. Everybody I know probably feels very similarly about Fred. So.
Well, if I leave this world tomorrow, let me leave a little love behind. Said if I leave this world tomorrow, let me leave a little love behind. Because there's too much pain and misery, too much heartache, too much to cry. And if I leave this world tomorrow, let me leave a little love behind. Too much heartache, too much